Today, I'm going to cover Donald Trump and his best possible path to victory this election. Since I've been covering Joe Biden for the last couple of videos, I will switch it up and cover Donald Trump this video and talk about his best case scenario for a victory this November. While he's been behind in the polls for the last few months, he's been picking up traction starting on July 20th, having regained Georgia and Texas from the Biden column, and is currently playing it safe in order to keep these crucial states in his bid for re-election. Keep in mind that at the current moment, Donald Trump is losing against Joe Biden, with the JHK forecast showing him only having a 13% chance of victory this November. While I believe that Donald Trump still has a fair chance of being re-elected this November, it will most likely not happen, and I'm only covering the best possible way that Donald Trump can be re-elected to the White House. Even if the best possible outcome were to happen in Trump's favor, he will still most likely lose a popular vote unless something drastic were to alter the course of events this election, completely changing the current political climate, which isn't completely out of the picture seeing as 2020 has truly been a spectacle and random catastrophic events. But in a likely scenario for Donald Trump to continue serving as President of the United States, the COVID-19 crisis will have to be solved by early to mid-November, and Trump's approval ratings will have to increase drastically from the slump that he has put himself in. If he were to do both of these things, then Donald Trump has a very real chance of victory against Joe Biden. First and foremost, let's clear out the states that Donald Trump has absolutely no chance of winning, which are Washington, Oregon, California, Hawaii, Illinois, Washington D.C., Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, New York, and Maine's 1st District along with its senatorial votes. Unless Donald Trump were to shift his agenda far more to the left, then it is completely impossible to win any of these states. In fact, I'm even considering putting New Mexico into the Democrat safe column, as it is looking closer and closer to a pure trifecta as both state legislators are close to 2/3 Democrat, along with the governor, both senators, and all 3 representatives being Democrat. So unless Donald Trump drops his plans for a border wall and pertains more to Hispanic voters in New Mexico the same way he did to automobile workers in Michigan back in 2016, then the state is staying in the Democrat safe column until a major shift happens in politics. Another state that I'm considering putting into the safe Democrat column is Colorado. Currently in Colorado, the only thing going for the Republican Party is having a single Republican senator, but even he's wary of losing his seat as his opponent this year, John Hickenlooper, has been making drastic gains in the past few months and now has an 83.4% chance of victory according to the JHK forecast. Along with a low chance of Cory Gardner keeping his Senate seat, the Republican Party has been losing voters in Colorado for a long time, with the last time Colorado had a Republican-controlled state legislator being in 2012. And the massive immigration from the more rural parts of the state to the urban centers of the state, with the cities of Denver and Colorado Springs each growing by 20% and 15% respectively, which further increases the power of the Democratic Party in the state of Colorado by a sizable amount. The final state that I'm putting into the Democratic safe column is New Hampshire, as a safe state is defined as a state that has voted for the same party in the last 4 elections. And New Hampshire fits this criteria as it has voted Democrat in 2004, 2008, 2012, and 2016. In 2016, if it weren't for so much third-party voting, the state most likely would have gone to Donald Trump, but due to the large shift in demographics, the state is now almost completely urbanized, now with only 4 counties accounting for 3/4 of the entire state population, which is why it has been so reliably Democrat for the last few election cycles, with all of its congressional representatives being Democrats. Another state that I'm putting into the Democratic column, but only by a lean amount, is Minnesota. Minnesota has been garnering more and more Republican votes in recent elections, having even created a net gain of 2 Republican congressional representatives in the 2018 midterm elections, which was the year that Democrats had their first sweep since the 2006 midterm elections. Despite this, Minnesota is still considered to be a reliably Democratic state, with the state setting 2 Democrats to the Senate and setting 5 Democrats to the House of Representatives out of the 8 House seats in the state. And if Donald Trump exceeds all expectations and goes way above and beyond this election, the last 2 states I'll cover that will most likely not vote for him are Virginia and Nevada. Virginia and Nevada have been urbanizing around Richmond, Washington, D.C., and Las Vegas by unprecedented amounts in the last few years, and not only is the urban population continuing to increase by large amounts, but so is the minority population in Virginia, with the Black population increasing by close to 25% and the Hispanic population in Nevada increasing by about 20% in recent years, which is one likely reason why these 2 states have been so reliably blue for the last few elections, having voted for the Democratic nominee in 3 out of the last 4 elections, and currently sending 2 Democrats to the Senate. So in the best case scenario for Donald Trump, the states of Virginia and Nevada will vote for Joe Biden by a tilt margin. Now let's go over the states that Trump has close to 100% chance of winning, which are Utah, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, except for the 2nd District, Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, West Virginia, and Alaska. These states for the past few elections have always sided with the Republican nominee by more than 55%, and each one has two Republican senators, and the majority of their House members are Republican, which solidifies their positions as safe Republican states and have them locked in for Donald Trump. Now that the obvious Democrat and Republican states are out of the way, let's cover the two most important states that are absolutely necessary for Donald Trump to have even a chance of re-election, which are Texas and Florida. Texas has been flipping back and forth for the past few weeks about Democrats and Republicans creating leads in the state for a while, and while it's theoretically possible for Texas to vote Democrat this election, it is very unlikely to happen as the state does not have such a low approval rating for Trump compared to the rest of the battleground states, and the state of Texas is on track to recovering from the coronavirus as the unemployment rate in Texas has dropped from 13.5% in late April to 8.6% in late July, which further increases the chance of Texas voting red this election, but only by a lean margin. Just like Texas, Florida is extremely necessary for Trump to win re-election, but unlike Texas, Florida is shifting farther and farther into the Biden column, with Trump barely having made any recent gains while Biden has been sweeping the state. Recently, the JHK forecast gave Florida an 82.7% chance of voting for Biden as of July 29th. The incredible thing about this prediction is how confident the polling is in a Biden victory in Florida, as the state has historically been split right down the middle. As an example, in 2012, Obama was only given a 52% chance of winning Florida, but in 2016, Trump was only given a 46% chance of winning Florida. Despite the fact that it is very difficult for Trump to win Florida in 2020, it is still within the realm of possibility, seeing as the unemployment rate has been falling from April 2020 to June 2020, though not as much as Texas. Currently, the main issue plaguing the state of Florida is the coronavirus, with close to 1 in every 50 residents of the state having contracted COVID-19 at some point. In the best case scenario for Donald Trump, he would be able to restrict the growth of the disease and improve treatment within the state, which would put Florida into the lean Republican column. This is extremely unlikely to happen this election, but in the best case scenario for Donald Trump, this will have to be done. Now let's move on to the Rust Belt states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. These states are absolutely necessary for a Trump re-election, as even if Trump keeps every single state he won in 2016, excluding this region, he will have lost, with Biden garnering a total of 270 electoral votes compared to Trump's 260. The reason Trump was able to secure this region in 2016 was due to his enthusiasm among blue-collar workers, especially in the automotive industry in Michigan and the fracking industry in Pennsylvania. By pertaining to blue-collar workers, Trump was able to win each of these states by razor-thin margins, with Michigan only going Republican by 0.2 points. At the moment, these states are likely to vote Democrat, as the main promise Trump made of helping blue-collar workers keep their jobs has been broken due to the massive layoffs due to COVID-19, which caused this region to have some of the worst unemployment in the country, with Pennsylvania alone having an unemployment rate of 13% and Michigan having an unemployment rate of 14.8%. Despite the economic downturn in the Rust Belt, I believe that it is possible for Trump to revitalize support in both Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, putting them each into the Republican tilt category. But as for Michigan, even in the best case scenario for Donald Trump, the state will most likely not continue voting Republican and will likely revert back to being a lean Democratic state. This is due to the fact that the state of Michigan is not showing any signs of recovery from the coronavirus. In fact, as of July 29th, the Donald Trump campaign has halted buying ads in the state of Michigan and is instead gearing their efforts towards states with larger Republican shares such as Iowa or Arizona. As for Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, in the best case scenario for Donald Trump, they will only vote Republican by a tilt margin if Trump is able to revitalize the economy in both states and lower the unemployment rate down to an extreme low amount, most likely below 5%, which is very unlikely, but is still possible. Aside from the upper Midwestern states of Wisconsin and Michigan, Trump already has a solid hold on the central Midwestern states of Ohio and Iowa, since both of these swing states are expected to vote Republican in the 2020 presidential race. At the moment, Iowa is a tilt Republican state, with Trump only leading by 1 point, and Ohio is currently a lean Republican state, with Trump leading by about 3 points, and fluctuates between 3 and 5 points a week, with Trump always being at least barely ahead of Biden each time. Both of these states have large rural populations, with Ohio experiencing the opposite of normal demographic shifts in the US by having an increase in its rural population, with the urban centers of the state such as Cleveland and Cincinnati shrinking each year. As I've already said, these states will probably be tilt Republican states in the 2020 election, but if Trump was able to improve his condition in the next few months, then these states will be moved to the likely Republican column, helping Trump catch up to Biden, only trailing behind by about 2 electoral votes. In the two toss-up states of North Carolina and Georgia, Trump is losing in North Carolina by about 2.4 points and leading Biden in Georgia by about 1.2 points. In the best case scenario for Donald Trump, both of these southern states will vote for for Donald Trump in the lean Republican column. While this is likely not to happen, it is still possible seeing as the coronavirus has not been as dreadful to these two states compared to the rest of the country, as both North Carolina and Georgia possess an unemployment rate of 7.6% each compared to the double-digit unemployment rate seen in other states such as New York or California. In the most likely scenario, Georgia will vote in the Republican tilt column while North Carolina will vote Democrat, but in the best case scenario for Trump, if he's able to play his cards right, then these two states will vote Republican in the lean column. In this scenario, North Carolina or Georgia could play as the tipping point state, which secures the 270 electoral votes needed for Donald Trump to clinch the presidency. Having secured 270 electoral votes, Donald Trump has clinched a second term in the White House, but it would be wrong to leave out the crucial battleground state of Arizona or the outlying congressional districts of Nebraska or Maine, which could all go for Biden or Trump. It will be very easy for Donald Trump to obtain Maine and Nebraska's outlying electoral votes, as they have large conservative voter bases that voted for him by a large margin in 2016, but Arizona will be tricky, but not impossible for Trump to win. In order to secure a win in Arizona, Trump needs to pertain to Hispanic voters in the state, as they now make up close to 1/3 of the entire state population, and a Trump victory in the state is threatened even more by the fact that a Democrat has recently flipped a Republican-held Senate seat in 2018 by 2.5 points. While it will be very hard for Trump to win Arizona in 2020, I believe that the state will be a tilt Republican state if he is able to sway a large portion of Hispanic voters away from the Biden column. In conclusion, the scenario that I have described in this video is extremely unlikely to happen, and major changes could happen at any moment, drastically changing up the outcome in any state or region. But if Trump is able to play his cards right and pertain to certain groups and fight off certain issues, especially the coronavirus, then he still has a very fair shot of keeping his position as commander-in-chief. I would like to thank you for watching, and make sure to like and subscribe.